Okay, welcome to DCS. First and foremost, DCS is a monster of an application. If you're not running a SSD drive and you're just running on a normal hard drive, you'll find your performance, particularly around load time, is going to be huge, particularly once you start getting to the bigger maps like Syria, the South Atlantic, and not so much Persian Gulf because it's quite old now, but certainly the newer maps and the Middle Eastern maps that are coming this year, such as Sinai, and I believe there's some additional maps coming out, will take you up to 5 minutes to load if you do not get an SSD drive. So, for example, I've loaded on DCS onto I think it's a 1 terabyte SSD drive, M.2 drive, sorry, which is pretty high speed, and it loads pretty quick. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is you'll notice all these pictures down the bottom of the screen here. These represent all the modules that are available for DCS, but also mods that you might have installed. So you have a whole lot of standard ones, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. There's a lot of modules, and the vast majority of modules are payware ones, so you will need to buy them. That being said, the ones that I have, for example, they are not payware that you can download. Starting from the front, we have the A4E, which is probably close to the most realistic and payware level mod you can download. So I'll put some links in the description around that. But essentially that is very, very high quality community made Skyhawk, and it is a lot of fun to fly if you can figure out how to get it up in the air. And then once it's up in the air, good luck with actually using it, because I can't kill a single thing with it, but it is fun to fly. The other one that I would recommend is, moving along the list, the Hercules is currently gone from a mod into a payware aircraft, so I'd probably hold off until that gets released. There's some other mods here, such as the HMAS Melbourne and 2, which is an asset, so it creates like a aircraft carrier, fictional I believe, but around that 1970s, 1980s for any themed based missions. Additionally, the Marianas is amazing, so that's a freeware island or freeware map pack that was released by the developers of DCS. And you can download that directly from the Steam page or from their website, which will just plug in automatically. Apart from that, there might be a few other bits and bobs there, but those are the main ones that I would highly recommend. If you're into choppers though, I will say that the UH-60 mod is another fantastic one. It's not quite the high fidelity, high detailed model that I'm used to in DCS, and it may not be up your alley, but definitely worth a shot if you're into choppers. So yeah, that's the mods list down the bottom, and you can see there's a lot of different modules you can buy or download. Now, most of these payware, you can see the grey ones means, for example, I don't own them, but I do own the coloured ones. So we'll go into a few of these as we get through this. First and foremost, just give you a quick tour around. So this is the normal screen you'll find when you first boot up, and from there this is your list down the side. Up the top you're going to spend a bit of time up here. This is your options, and if you have a high spec system or a medium spec system, you're probably going to spend quite a lot of time fine tuning all of your settings. Until you find a right sort of feel for it, you'll probably play around with these. Now, there's some really good guides online about what you can set your system up to be, but generally speaking, depends largely on your system. For example, this here, I've just clicked the high button for the preset to show you, because I commonly fly in virtual reality or VR, so I've set my custom ones here to support what works for my VR system. But for this video I'm doing it in 4K high detail because my system is a high spec system. This tab here is the beast that you will learn to hate, and you will spend way too much time setting up your controls in here. And what I find I end up doing, especially when I buy a new aircraft, is I'll search high and low until I find a file to basically add in all of the presets. Failing that, there are some guides out there to set these up, and I highly recommend you learning how to do the bindings before you do anything in this game, because it is brutal how many different key bindings there are that comes with it. A good example would be for the Apache, you'll have the pilot commands, which are, as you can see, rather significant in a payware aircraft. It just goes on and on and on, but the vast majority you don't actually need. So you'll find that depending on what your cockpit setup is in your HOTAS, you may or may not bind certain keyboards. I'll talk about a really powerful resource called Chuck's. They're called Chuck's Aircraft Guides. I'll put some links in the description, and they'll cover off where you can actually read some very realistic manuals, not like aircraft manuals, but actually community-made manuals that gives you a picture of a Warthog HOTAS, and you can bind those key bindings. If you are humming and hawing still about what kind of HOTAS you want, whilst the Warthog is not cheap, I think they're probably retailing for about 500 to 700 New Zealand dollars. You should be able to find some on Trade Me or Mighty Ape, I think is where I bought mine. They have some specials from time to time, but that is the, I suppose, the industry standard for DCS, and most aircraft have got some really good guides or just plug and play files that you can install your commands or your keyboard commands on your HOTAS commands straight in. So that's the controls tab. Gameplay, you'll find there's a few extra little buttons here that may or may not mean anything. If you're into editors, I tend to sway away from the Russian editor icon style, which for some reason is set as default. And you've got a few other things here. Obviously I don't play gamey stuff, so I don't do unlimited fuel, unlimited weapons or anything like that, but it's over to you if you learn. And one of the most annoying parts I find is the labels for aircraft. So this here, you probably have to turn this off, is just get rid of them, because it's not realistic at all. There's no point in flying if you're going to fly labels. If you do, that's fine, but it seems pretty average if you play such a hardcore game like DCS to have labels. So the miscellaneous stuff, depends how hardcore you want to go, like external views. I love external views because you get to see the prettiness of your paid aircraft, and a few other different bits and bobs here, which you don't have to worry too much about. I've never really ticked too much of these. Coordinate displays, you'll find this becomes quite important when you're dealing with precision bombing or JTAC work. Traditionally JTACs will call it an MJRS, and unless your aircraft supports it, you may have to do some conversions through some pretty chunky ways of doing it through the map system, but that long decimal minutes is probably what you'll be fine to leave on, and the likes. Audio, I think I'd recommend turning down a little bit of your in-cockpit volume if you're doing any radio work, because it will get a bit overbearing. And another good way of doing it is setting your outputs. So for example, if you've got headphones, selecting which headphones you use here will mean that if you forget to change over anything in your settings in the Windows, it should automatically do it. I'll talk about the add-on or plugin you should use for any multiplayer comms. It's called SRS, and that is a very, very awesome bit of software that will help you get through your multiplayer experience. Definitely another topic though. Right, specials tab, very important. If you get down the road of buying a module, and we're going to talk about the Hornet next as the main one because that's the one that I traditionally fly and fly the most. Some aircraft, for example, if you're like me and you're into a bit of Russian aircraft, really important that you change your customized aircraft to the right language, because if you boot into your Russian aircraft trying to figure out how to start the thing, unless you're pretty good at Russian, you're going to struggle. And I usually find just changing your language over. So most of the Russian aircraft have a kind of a language setting for the pay ones. I've noticed that the free ones, or ones that have got the packs with the Su-33 and the SU-25 were free for me when I bought the modules or came with the aircraft. So as you can see, you can change the different languages. There are some trimming stuff, which is a whole another discussion about trim. Trim is really a big topic in the aircraft world, and most lately the AH-64 has some pretty crazy trim systems with which can make you crash pretty quick. The other one is if you do VR. An example would be my Hornet. You'll see here you've got HMD render. If you're using VR and you have this on one of the eyes, it comes across like what you would expect a real world headset to come across. One eye will display the heads-up display information, which means that if you close that eye, literally you won't see it. It can be a little bit difficult, so if you switch that to both eyes, you'll find it comes across a lot clearer in VR. So yeah, just a few things you'll probably play around here in a little bit sometimes, and definitely worth having a look at the different options that come with each aircraft, which has its own unique special options. And if you're in VR, again a whole another discussion which we probably won't go into, but there's a lot of options to play around with. Like I said, sum it up, system, set it up, play with it, find the one that best performance. Performance is really important. FPS is super important in this game. Split decisions and things happen, so make sure you get a nice smooth experience, but also enjoy the awesome graphics that it provides. Controls, like I said, you'll play a lot in there. Gameplay, don't worry too much about that unless you want to get all gamey on it, and so forth. So those are your options, and that pretty much ends the main sort of menu. This tab here gives you the latest news, and over here obviously pretty self-explanatory. You'll spend a lot of time, depending what kind of games you like playing, whether it's single player or multiplayer. Instant action is a great way to find a type of scenario you want to fly for your type of aircraft, but right through to it depends if you're a campaign type person. I don't personally play a lot of campaigns because they are very long and they can take some time, and if you don't have all the time in the world to stop a campaign in the middle, generally doesn't work. So I try to avoid campaigns personally, but there are some really cool campaigns out there that has a really immersive backgrounds and stories. Missions are just standalone missions that you can play based on the type of aircraft you want. And again, I don't play a lot of these, but some have got some great voice acting, some great cutscene type stuff, so really cool. So yeah, the only other one I'll talk about is the training, and in here, really awesome to set up and play, and I'll talk about how I do it when I first get an aircraft, so you're aware of that. Awesome. So from here, we shall see you on the next one.